All right, so we have this goal of 33%. So back to our cow example, we had the $800 revenue stream per cow. Our overheads were $240. That calculates out to 33%. All right, so right now or let me say last year, at last year's calf prices and cull cow prices, $800 is what a lot of folks were getting as income per cow. Now remember, not every cow, typically, not every cow in the herd has a calf. So even though the value of a calf itself maybe was $800, if only 90% of the cows exposed to bulls last year brought a live calf to the weaning pen, that's only 72 calves, which means we don't have $800 income from a calf for every cow. We only have $720 calf income per cow because we had those open cows. What do we do with those open cows? We sell them. And so we have this chunk of money. And let's just use a 100 cow example. We sold 10 open cows and we got $6,000 for those 10 cows. We divide that $6,000 by the 100 cows that we exposed for breeding, and so we have $60 cull cow income per cow unit. So we add that to our $720 to the calf. We're now up to $780. We sold, if we had 100 cows, we probably had 3 bulls. And so we're going to sell one of those bulls each year to replace them, you know, so we have the genetic flow there. And that cull bull, maybe he brought, in the current market, $800 to $900. So we take that $800, divide it by our 100 cows, and we have $8 in bull income. We add that to it, and so here we are sitting at $788 total revenue per cow unit, and that's how we figure what that number is going to be. It is not the price that you can sell one calf for. It is the assigned income from each of these sale types to the number of cows that we expose for breeding. And the back of the envelope accounting that a lot of part-time ranchers do, they take the price of the calf and presume that every cow earned that much money, and then they can't figure out, why do I have this job in town? It looks like I should have plenty of money, but you don't. So $240 overhead. And some of you have been in the cattle business for a long time, and you might have a sense of what that number is on your operation. For those of you who are just getting started and thinking about growing a cow herd and getting into this business, to me, that is a reasonable number to be shooting for. So as you start looking at your investment in who's going to be working on this place, what kind of facilities am I going to build, what kind of equipment am I going to buy, in a good accounting package, you will be able to track those overheads. And if you are doing a planning budget and your overhead per cow that you're looking at is $400, you better relook at what you're doing. Because on the bottom part of the cattle cycle, $400 overhead on a cow is going to be too much, unless you're doing certain things. Value-added products. As we get into the stock policy and enterprise analysis that we're doing tomorrow, you will see in a lot of grass-fed operations, they lose money in the cow-calf phase of their business. They may lose money in the growing phase of their business, but if they're producing high-quality grass-fed beef, premium quality, develop a loyal customer base to where you're getting top dollar for that, the gross margin potential of a well-run grass-fed operation will offset the losses in the cow-calf and the growing sector. But if you're not selling premium price grass-fed beef, you decide, you know, I don't like that marketing. I don't like talking to people. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to sell them wholesale to Thousand Hills Beef. The last I knew, and they may have jumped it up a bit now, last I knew, Thousand Hills Beef was only paying 15 cents over commodity finish. That's the bonus. That's the premium their producers were getting. And that probably isn't enough to compensate for losses in the cow-calf and growing sector. You have to be getting something well above. And 5 years ago, Thousand Hills was at times paying 75 cents. I mean, when they were buying wholesale grass-finished cattle, they were 75 cents over what commodity slaughter price was. And if you're getting that kind of premium, there's a whole lot of stuff you can do, and you're going to be able to pay for it. So what the premium for your grass-fed product is, you know, drives, you know, some of these decisions here. And I've worked with a lot of grass-fed outfits, some of the biggest names in the country, and I always went to them saying, you want to design your grazing program, you want to make the investment in infrastructure that commodity cattle will pay for. If you design those inputs to your business for commodity production, then the payback, if you have a premium valued product, is huge, even more huge than what I showed you on that one example from Montana yesterday, where they paid for the fence and water on that 4-section pasture in 3 years' time just from saved feed costs. Okay, so we're going to look at 3 of these examples of SPA analysis. And again, SPA is Standardized Performance Appraisal. Was supposed to be the ultimate record-keeping system for the beef industry. About 10% of producers ever adopted it. So 1987, 1997, that's ancient history. Why do we waste our time? We know we have a dynamic market. We know everything is fluid. We know prices today are way above what they were in this time period. Why do we bother looking at stuff like this? Because before the current cattle cycle that we're in, 87 to 97 was the last run of a classic 10-year cattle cycle. From 97 to about 2008, 2009, the cycle wasn't happening. Everything we thought we knew about how the market was going to respond wasn't working. Why was that? Severe Texas drought in, I think that's 2011. The ethanol mandate in 2000, when was that? 2008? 2007, 2008, that's when, you know, corn prices skyrocketed. So we had abnormal things happening, and it held prices, you know, kind of at a higher level than we expected for a long time. And then they really shot up in 13, 14, 15. Then they came down from there. And a lot of, you know, people were saying, well, the cattle cycle is done. We don't have that structure in the industry anymore. You don't have to worry about that. We've established a new level of pricing, and nothing's going to change that. As soon as any pundit says, we've established a new basis of pricing and nothing is going to change that, that's the time to sell and, you know, change the business. Same thing in the housing market. What were the realtors telling us in 2004, 2005, 2006? Buy a house, buy a big house. It's an appreciating asset. It's a great place to put your money. You can't go wrong buying a house right now because look at this market. My wife actually was a real estate broker. I mean, she'd had a fence company in the 1980s, early 90s in Missouri, sold that, and that's what became Powerflex fencing. For anyone who is familiar with Powerflex fencing, Dave and Connie Kreider, who owned that business, are the people who bought my wife's fence business in 1993 and then built it into Powerflex. So she became a real estate broker. And so she got the realtor magazines and things, and occasionally I would read them. And I remember in one of her realtor magazines, I think it was 2004, 2005, that, you know, was telling people, this is not when you want to be buying a house. If you have ranch property in the West, it would be a great time to sell it, because in the time frame sometime between 2006 and 2010, there will be a major drop in the housing market. It's all over the realtor magazines, yet the realtors are telling us, buy houses, buy houses, buy houses. And why did they know that there was going to be a crash in that 2005 to 2010 time period? Because there's a generational real estate cycle. We never learn from our parents. We are all destined to make the same mistake that our parents do. And in our parents' generation, there was a time when the realtors say, it's different, invest in a house, it's going to appreciate, and great place to put your money. Every approximately 27 to 30 years, there is a housing crash. We didn't used to call them crisis, it was just a housing crash. Now we had a housing crisis. It's predictable. It goes back to the Greeks and the Romans. It is in the writing of, you know, some of their economic philosophers from, you know, basically the year 0, or in the case of the Greeks, like 300 BC, that talks about real estate cycles based on generational failure to learn in generations. 2,000 years, people have known that this is going to happen, and we get all bent out of shape because houses lost value in, you know, that 2008, 7, 8, 9 time period. Huh. When will they ever learn? I don't know. Okay, so let me get back on track. So I use this one because it's the last running of the cattle cycle. It does illustrate a very important concept. So when we look at this bottom line of return on assets, this is not, you know, the worst year of the cattle cycle, the best year of the cattle cycle. It's a 10-year running of the cattle cycle, and these are averages. So I'm going to start on this top line here. And all three of these assessments are going to be laid out the same way. The bottom 15% of cow-calf producers, the average, and the top 15%. So if we look at pounds weaned per cow exposed, and so this is where we're differentiating between weaning weight and the number of pounds that the whole herd weans that we assign back to the cows. So we look at the bottom 15%, and we see 413 pounds of weaned calf per cow exposed. The average and the top 15% are up here at 455. Why are these bigger numbers than that number? Anybody think it's heavier weaning weights?
Poor management. More management of breeding calves.
More cows bred and more live calves brought to the weaning pen. In this assessment, there's no statistical difference in the weaning weights between those three groupings of producers. They're all weaning the same weight of calves, but the bottom 15%, they don't get as many cows bred, and they have higher death loss typically at calving time. All right, so that's first thing we see here is it is not weaning weight driving this revenue stream per cow, this number of live calves. Income per breeding female, there's a $100 difference between the top 15% and the bottom 15%. So if we were to look here and say there's a 40-pound differential there, there's a $100 differential there, that makes each pound that those producers, the top end, each additional pound that they're marketing per cow has a value of $2.50. $100 more total revenue, only 40 pounds more a calf. Each pound for them is worth $2.50 a pound. What were cattle prices at this time? Probably at the top of the cycle, just over $1, $1.05, $1.10 maybe. Bottom of the cycle, 70 cents. Yet they're getting $2.50 a pound value out of it. Well, that's really interesting. And then I highlighted this line here. We look at it. The bottom 15%, $637 cost to carry a cow. The top 15%, $270. I don't know if I can do that math. Is that $350 per cow difference in cost of production between the high group and the low group? Yeah, that's what it is, about 350 bucks. We look at the average here at 386. So through most of the mid-80s, through the 90s, into the early 2000s, we could pretty safely say, oh, the average cow-calf producer costs them $350, $400 to carry a cow. And that's exactly where we are. Now, what I find really shocking is that the cost differential between the high profit and the low profit group is equivalent to the total cost of the average producer. That says these people are doing something not very clever. Right now, if we look at the average, so this is 2020, but I'm looking back at 2019, 2018 numbers. If we look at the 2018 U.S. national average cost to carry a cow based on herds greater than 100 cows, because you know there's a whole lot of 20, 30, 40, 50 cow herds that have ridiculously high costs per cow. So if we drop all of those herds out and look only at herds that have at least 100 cows, in 2018 the average cost to carry a cow in a herd of 100 cows or more was about $620. These are people ahead of their time.